A little girl walks her dogs every morning until people discover she is hiding unbelievable secret. The faint light of the early morning began to shine down on the town of Riverton, a peaceful place with narrow streets and old, closely packed houses. Thick fog curled around, obscuring the view and making the space feel mystical. On that morning, as the first rays of sunlight began to pierce through the mist, an unusual sight caught everyone's attention. A pack of 6 large, muscular Rottweilers moved down the main street of Riverton. These dogs weren't running around or playing like normal dogs. Instead, they moved with perfect synchronization, each step strong, steady, and full of power. It seemed as though they knew exactly what their role was, maintaining precise distance from each other, without bumping into or pushing one another. What was even more remarkable was that there was no one leading them, no leashes or collars. They moved freely, like warriors trained to perfection. The townspeople stopped in their tracks, eyes wide in astonishment at this sight. They had never seen a pack of dogs move like this. But what truly astonished them was not the dogs, but the one leading them, a tiny girl, only about 6 years old, walking between the muscular dogs like a commander with years of experience. The girl had smooth, fair skin and long, slightly curly brown hair, tied neatly into a small ponytail at the back of her head. She wore a bright red jacket, white sneakers with small stains as if she had been walking for a long time, but showed no signs of fatigue. The dogs followed her, as if they were her loyal bodyguards, ready to protect her at any moment. The strangest thing was that the little girl did not speak a single word. No sound, no calls, only her deep, penetrating gaze and subtle, gentle gestures, yet full of authority. A slight wave of her hand, a delicate point of her finger, or a subtle wink was enough to make all 6 dogs stop, change direction, or speed up, all without any confusion. They obeyed her commands without the need for clear instructions. Lorna Hayes, an elderly woman living in the town, was the first to look out the window and feel that something was odd about the girl's actions. Lorna, a former longtime teacher, had always paid attention to strange occurrences in the community. This girl couldn't possibly be a professional trainer. She couldn't control these dogs with just such small gestures. Lorna wondered, could this girl be hiding a secret that no one knew about? As the pack of dogs passed by, the townspeople stood frozen, unable to take their eyes off the sight. They saw the dogs moving not just like a disciplined army, but as if they had a spiritual connection with the little girl. No one dared approach or speak to her, for she always remained silent, indifferent to the curious gazes around her. When the pack of dogs approached the bus stop, a driver in a car stopped to watch, unable to believe his eyes. "What is going on here? Is that a little girl?" he muttered, stunned. The sight seemed like a strange miracle, making everyone hold their breath, creating a sense of curiosity in each person, and they could not tear their eyes away from the image of the little girl leading the majestic pack of dogs. And even though no one dared get closer, people began talking. Who is that girl? How can she control those dogs? The story of the little girl and her pack of dogs quickly spread throughout the town, and before long, a short video of the scene appeared on social media. Crowds began to gather daily to witness this miraculous sight. They began to call her the Silent Guide, and the story of the little girl began to turn into a phenomenon. However, few knew that behind this little girl was a sad story and a dark secret that no one could have predicted. The town of Riverton, where everyone thought they were living a peaceful life, suddenly found itself caught up in an unexpected and complex investigation. But for Hannah, the little girl was simply seeking connection and protection in a world that had lost its most beloved ones. The dogs, with their loyalty and boundless strength, were the only remaining friends in the harsh world she had to face. The story of the girl and the pack of dogs was just beginning. But would the secrets of her family's past and this strange bond be revealed? And would this miracle continue, or would it be overshadowed by the darkness of the past? Hannah's life wasn't always filled with great dogs and foggy mornings. Before she became a famous phenomenon in Riverton, she lived in a completely different world. A world full of love, care, and big dreams about the animals her family cherished. Hannah was born into a renowned dog training family. Her parents, Thomas and Laura Walker, were top professional dog trainers, particularly with police and military breeds. They not only worked with government agencies, but also created and taught advanced training methods. From a very young age, Hannah was raised in an environment full of magnificent dogs, creatures that were not only companions, but also protectors, students, and sometimes part of challenging training experiments. As a child, Hannah was the only one in her family who could calm the most difficult dogs. By the age of 3, she was able to gently soothe aggressive dogs, making them calm down with just a stroke or a light touch. Thomas and Laura were very proud of this ability in their daughter, and they realized that she was not just an ordinary child. There was something special in the way Hannah connected with the dogs. It wasn't just love, there was a deeper ability, a gift that made even the most powerful animals obedient to her. But everything changed rapidly on a rainy day in October 2019. A truck ran a red light and collided with the Walker family's car as they were returning home from a training session. Neither Thomas nor Laura had time to react, and they died instantly, leaving Hannah completely alone, unhurt but carrying the unbearable pain. The accident took everything she loved. In a moment, her entire world collapsed. Hannah not only lost her parents, but also lost her connection to the world around her. She seemed to no longer want to interact with anyone. A mild form of autism developed from that moment, causing her to retreat into her own world, where only the dogs were her companions. She no longer spoke to anyone, communicated with no one, and lived in the long, silent days beside the loyal animals her parents had trained. Doctors called it selective mutism, but for Hannah, it was simply the only way she could survive in a world that no longer made sense to her. Living with her grandparents Bill and Joan, who had entered her life after the accident, wasn't easy. The Walkers were elderly, in poor health, and unable to manage all 6 of the family's dogs. These dogs were not just pets, but elite warriors, trained for difficult missions. If not properly cared for, they could become unstable and dangerous. However, Bill and Joan never thought of separating Hannah from them. The whole family believed that the pack of dogs was the only remaining connection between the little girl and her parents, and the only way for her to find peace again. Every day, Bill tried to take the dogs for a walk, but his health did not allow him to do so for long. Joan, despite her deep love for her granddaughter, could not take care of both the dogs and Hannah at the same time. Their life became exhausting, stressful, and each day felt like a battle to maintain some stability for this small family. However, Hannah was not just a wounded child, she was also a strong girl, one who was seeking to regain control of her life. Every night, after everyone had gone to sleep, she would sneak up to the attic and enter the room where her parents' training notebooks were kept. These notebooks were filled with detailed notes on each dog, training techniques, signals, and methods of controlling the animals. Under the dim light, she would immerse herself in studying these notebooks, learning each technique, each gesture, and how to connect with her pack of dogs. She never felt the need for anything other than these animals. They were family, the only place where she could find comfort. One day, when Joan's back pain became so severe that she could no longer walk the dogs, Hannah made a decision she had never tried before. She said nothing, silently attaching leashes to the dogs and then walking them out, guiding them down the street. It was a decisive action, without words, only determination and resolve. The pack of dogs moved through Riverton's main street, causing people to stop and watch. They moved like a military unit, obeying the commands of the little girl without any spoken orders or clear instructions. This strange sight sparked curiosity and amazement within the community. The townspeople didn't understand what was happening, but they couldn't deny the strength and determination in each step of the girl and her dogs. It was a flawless performance, one where people could not help but feel the special connection between Hannah and these animals. And so, the story of the little girl and the pack of dogs began to spread, not only throughout the community, but also in the media. But for Lorna Hayes, an elderly woman in the town, there was something in Hannah's eyes and actions that made her feel an unexplainable strangeness. She couldn't simply dismiss it as an interesting story, and she was determined to uncover the truth behind the little girl. Lorna Hayes had lived in Riverton her entire life, witnessing countless changes and ups and downs in the small town. As an elderly woman who had once been the principal of the local elementary school, she always maintained a sharp eye on everything happening around her. She wasn't the type to easily be swept up in trending phenomena or captivating stories, and Hannah, the girl leading the pack of dogs, quickly became something she couldn't help but question. Lorna looked out the window of her old house, her eyes fixed on the image of the little girl and the dogs. Although the scene was beautiful and strange, it made her feel that something was off. Having worked as a teacher for 30 years, Lorna had learned to recognize unusual behavior and changes in children. And the moment she saw Hannah for the first time, she knew something wasn't right. A 6-year-old child couldn't control such powerful dogs with only gentle gestures, especially dogs that could easily become violent if not properly trained. She decided to keep an eye on the little girl, not out of curiosity, but because of an inexplicable feeling inside her. Lorna wasn't the type to gossip, but as someone who had taught and cared for children, she could sense that something was different about Hannah. There was something she could not explain with the simple theory of dog training. Lorna felt there was a strange connection between the girl and the dogs that she could not understand. It wasn't love, nor was it the connection between a human and a pet, but something deeper, a magical control, as if the little girl could control the minds of the dogs. Day by day, Lorna continued to observe. She watched Hannah's journey from early morning until nightfall. The little girl moved around the town, leading the dogs as though they were military-trained soldiers. The more Lorna watched, the more she felt something was wrong. The dogs, typically trained only for tasks, performed perfectly under the command of a child. A slight wave of the hand, a glance over the shoulder, a small signal, and everything unfolded perfectly. The little girl led the dogs through the streets, around intersections, and when they reached a crossroad, the dogs automatically formed a protective circle around her. Cars had to stop when they saw her crossing the street, and pedestrians stopped to admire the sight. One day, as she stood at the window, Lorna heard the soft footsteps of someone. Turning around, she saw Bill, Hannah's grandfather, standing there, looking out with tired eyes, his trembling hands resting on the armrest of the chair. Bill was the only one who truly understood the situation in his family, but even he could not grasp the rapid and strange changes in Hannah's behavior. He looked at Lorna, silent, and his gaze seemed to want to reveal something he could not say. Lorna didn't wait long for an answer. She decided to visit Bill one late afternoon, when only the dim light of dusk remained. The Walker house was old and showed the marks of time. The roof sagged, the windows were dusty, and the atmosphere inside was rather cold. Bill sat in the living room, holding a cup of hot tea, his face sad. Lorna entered without knocking, as she was very familiar with the house. "Bill, I need to talk to you about Hannah," Lorna spoke, sitting down in the chair across from him. Bill sighed, setting his teacup down, then looked at Lorna with tired eyes. "I know, Lorna. She is not the same anymore. I can feel it. There is something wrong, is not there?" Lorna asked, her voice calm yet firm. "Hannah cannot control those dogs like that. I have been watching her for a week now, and I feel there is something very strange." Bill looked at Lorna, his eyes as if wanting to say something but unable to. After a long silence, he spoke. "I do not know, Lorna. The dogs, they seem to have some kind of strange power when they are with her. I do not understand it, but I cannot stop thinking that there is something not normal." Lorna stared at Bill, then silently observed him. She sensed that he knew more than he was willing to admit. "Do you know about Hannah's training before the accident? Did she learn something from her parents' training notebooks?" Bill's gaze grew cloudy, as if he was flipping through a painful memory in his mind. "Yes, there are those notebooks. Thomas and Laura, they wrote everything down. She has read them, even understood them better than I thought. But it is not just that. He paused, his face contemplative, as if he was struggling to speak a truth he could not fully accept. Lorna knew she had touched upon a secret, and things would now begin to unravel. The little girl and the pack of dogs weren't just a simple miracle story. There was something deeper and darker that people had not yet fully understood. And as she left Bill's house, Lorna became even more determined. Hannah wasn't just a child with extraordinary abilities. She might also be part of a larger secret that Lorna had to uncover before it was too late. Lorna Hayes wasn't someone who easily gave up. After her conversation with Bill, she felt like she had gotten one step closer to the truth that Riverton had yet to uncover. Lorna knew that if she wanted to clear her doubts, she needed to learn more about the training notebooks Hannah had secretly been studying. The story of the girl leading the dogs was not just a simple performance. It might be connected to things that even Bill and Joan Walker did not fully understand. She decided to go straight to the Walker's house one weekend morning. The house was still the same, quiet and full of the marks of time. She had visited many times over the years, but this time she felt something was different. It wasn't the curiosity of a woman wanting to learn more about the strange story of the little girl, but rather a feeling that she was about to uncover a great secret that everyone was trying to hide. Lorna entered the house without knocking, as the Walkers were very familiar with her. Contrary to the warmth that family often brings, the atmosphere in the Walker house always had a chill, a vague sense of loneliness. Joan, Hannah's grandmother, was sitting in the armchair near the window, her gaze fixed outside as if waiting for something. "Hello, Joan. I just stopped by to have a little chat," Lorna spoke, trying to keep her voice calm. Joan nodded, offering a slight but weary smile. "Hello, Lorna, how are you?" "Where is the little girl?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Lorna looked around, but didn't see Hannah anywhere. "Isn't Hannah home?" "No, she went for a walk with the dogs. She loves going out in the mornings." "It is fine. The dogs are all very well behaved," Joan replied. Lorna didn't ask more, but inside she felt uncomfortable. The way Joan spoke about Hannah and the dogs made Lorna feel as though something was being hidden. After a while of chatting with Joan about the town, Lorna quietly stood up and walked inside, trying to find some information that Joan might have overlooked. As she passed by Bill's study, she paused for a moment, her eyes falling on the desk filled with books and old family photographs. There was something unusual here. The training notebooks Bill had mentioned seemed to have disappeared. "Bill," Lorna called as she returned to the living room, "may I see the training notebooks that Hannah had been studying?" Bill, who had been sitting by the old desk, looked at her strangely. A hesitation appeared in his eyes, as though he was trying to find a way to refuse, but could not. He took a deep breath, then exhaled, as if accepting something inevitable. "Lorna, I think you should not know. This is not just about simple training methods. These are secrets that Thomas and Laura kept hidden. I am not sure we are ready to face them." Lorna didn't stop. She was resolute. "Bill, if you do not tell me, I will not be able to understand why all of this is happening. Hannah needs help. You must understand that. The dogs aren't ordinary pets. They are part of something bigger." Bill closed his eyes for a moment, as if unable to avoid it anymore, then stood up and walked to the old bookshelf. "All right, you are right. I'm sure you have seen that something is very strange. I will show you what Thomas and Laura wrote." He opened an old drawer and pulled out a thin leather-bound notebook, its cover worn down by the passage of time. These weren't ordinary notebooks. Lorna felt a cold breeze when the notebook was opened. On the yellowed pages were the handwritten words of Thomas and Laura, detailed and meticulous in every dot and stroke of the pen. But as she read, she realized that these weren't just ordinary training methods. There was something deeper instructions that not everyone could understand. One particularly striking passage read, "Hannah has a special ability. An ability to connect with these creatures in a way we cannot explain. She is not just a trainer, she is a leader. If she can learn how to fully control them, there will be no limit to the power she can wield. But we must be careful. This connection is not just the ability to control, It is connected to something more mystical. Lorna read this passage over and over, a sense of shock and fear rising within her. These weren't the notes of an ordinary dog trainer. What Thomas and Laura had discovered about their daughter was not just a talent, but a supernatural ability that could change the course of the little girl's life. She looked up and met Bill's gaze. So, you knew that she wasn't just training them. She is controlling them. All these dogs are obeying her will like machines. Bill nodded, his face growing somber. I can't fully understand it, but I know that what she has is not just an ordinary talent. She has taken in things we could never teach her, and if she is not controlled, I fear she will not understand the consequences of this power. Lorna felt a growing sense of fear in her heart. The little girl, Hannah, with those powerful dogs, might not just be a strange phenomenon in the town of Riverton. Perhaps she was holding an unimaginable power, and without the right kind of help, that power could lead to something irreversible. She knew she couldn't let Hannah continue alone on this journey. The girl needed protection, but she also needed to understand the power she possessed. Lorna was determined to help Hannah learn how to use her abilities properly before it was too late. Lorna Hayes could not take her eyes off the training notebook Bill had given her. The old, worn pages, with meticulous handwriting, seemed to contain a deep secret that even those who created it had yet to fully understand. A supernatural power, an ability to control and command mighty creatures, but not a simple connection between human and animal. From the words in the notebook, Lorna could sense something very different. Not just training, but a connection to something much more mystical. In the following days, Lorna tried to keep what she had discovered a secret from anyone in town. She knew that this was not just a typical story about a girl training dogs, but something far more serious. If this information got out, it could create a storm within the community, and Lorna could not predict the consequences. She needed to think carefully about how to approach this issue. With a heart full of anxiety, she decided to visit Hannah again, but this time not as an observer, but as someone trying to help the girl. She wanted to understand more about Hannah's special ability and help her control it before things got out of hand. That morning, Lorna went to the park where the girl often took the dogs for a walk. The familiar scene appeared before her. The large, powerful dogs, incredibly disciplined, following each of Hannah's steps, the girl who was only as tall as their bellies, yet led them like a commander. Lorna stood from afar, observing the scene, and this time she felt an even greater fear rising within her. It wasn't fear for the dogs, but for Hannah, the girl who didn't yet fully understand the power she had. When Hannah came closer, Lorna stepped forward and gently called her name. Hannah. Her voice was not hurried, just gentle, hoping to approach the girl. Hannah stopped, her large, bright eyes looking up at her. She simply nodded, not saying anything. Since the accident, Hannah had not spoken to anyone except her dogs. This silence wasn't the silence of a normal child, but the silence of one whose soul had closed off, no longer wanting to share anything with the outside world. Lorna gently sat down beside the girl, trying to maintain a respectful distance, not wanting to put too much pressure on her. She looked into Hannah's eyes, where she could still see the deep pain that the girl could not express. A pain too great, and a loneliness that no one could truly understand. Hannah, do you remember your parents? Lorna gently asked, trying to find a common point to start the conversation. Hannah looked at Lorna for a moment, then silently lowered her head. In that gaze, Lorna saw endless sadness, but also an indescribable resilience. It seemed like the girl didn't want to talk about the past, but couldn't forget it either. Lorna sighed, took a small piece of paper from her pocket, and quietly wrote a few lines on it. She handed it to Hannah, who looked at the paper, then back at Lorna. The girl still didn't say anything, but this gesture from Lorna seemed to bring some peace to Hannah's heart. You are not alone, Hannah. There are people around you who are always here, and if you want, you can share with me what you feel. I will help you understand your abilities and help you learn how to control them. Lorna looked at the girl with sincere eyes, wanting to convey the message of help. In her heart, Understanding Hannah's abilities was no longer the only concern. What was important was that the girl needed to learn how to live with them and control them before they put both her and those around her in danger. Hannah didn't say anything, but her eyes showed a hint of acceptance. She nodded slightly, then turned back to lead the dogs as they continued their journey. Lorna stood up, watching the girl's silhouette fade behind the dogs. She knew that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey. From that day on, Lorna began helping Hannah learn how to control her abilities. She enrolled the girl in a special training program, not just teaching her how to control the dogs, but also helping her understand that this power could become a danger if not controlled properly. She also tried to reach out to animal researchers and behavioral experts to find the safest method for Hannah. However, the more Lorna delved into her research, the more she uncovered unexpected truths. Thomas and Laura's training notebook didn't just contain ordinary dog training techniques. It held secrets about a long-term study on the unique connection between humans and animals, an area of research known to very few. The dogs that Hannah was training were not simply animals being taught in a traditional manner. They had a profound spiritual connection with her, something even professional trainers could not explain. The deeper Lorna went into the research, the more she realized that she was facing a heartbreaking truth. Without the proper help, this ability could become a threat not only to Hannah, but also to the entire community. But Lorna knew that no matter how difficult it was, she would not give up. She had seen the light in Hannah's eyes, a glimmer of hope, small but powerful enough to fight against the darkness. And she would be the one to help the girl find the right path to live with her special abilities. This story wasn't just about a girl and her dogs. It was a story about power, about control, and about the tough decisions one has to face when they must protect what is most important in life. As time passed, Lorna Hayes felt more and more that she was standing on a challenging path. Even though she had helped Hannah learn how to control her special ability, the things she had learned from Thomas and Laura's training notebook continued to haunt her like a nightmare. With each passing day, she felt like she was sinking deeper into a great secret that perhaps even the creators of it had never fully anticipated. One early morning, as Lorna was preparing to meet Hannah and her dogs in the park, she received a phone call. It was Bill, and his voice sounded urgent. "Lorna, you need to come to my house right now." "I cannot keep this in anymore," Bill said, his voice filled with haste. "There are things I haven't told you, and I think you need to know." A chill ran down Lorna's spine. It felt like something huge was about to happen, a truth that none of them had fully grasped. She immediately drove to Bill's house, her mind heavy with conflicting thoughts. When she stepped into his home, the air inside seemed heavier than ever. Bill stood at the door, looking worried and exhausted. "Lorna, I cannot hide this from you any longer," Bill said, his voice grave. "There are things in the notebook that I never wanted to mention. Dog trainers, normal ones, should never have known about them. But now I see, you are the only one who can help Hannah. She might face something that we could never have imagined." Lorna looked at him, suspicion filling her eyes. "What is going on, Bill? What have you been hiding from me?" Bill led Lorna to a separate room in the house, where a worn table was covered with papers scattered everywhere. On the table was an old wooden box, and Bill opened it. Inside was a series of documents and old photographs of the Walker family. Lorna began flipping through the photos, and her eyes stopped when she saw one particular picture. It was a black and white photo of Thomas and Laura, looking young and happy, but in their hands was not a normal dog. It was a large, strange animal, a wolf. Lorna was shocked. "This is a wolf, isn't it?" Bill nodded, his face full of hesitation. "Yes, it is a wolf that Thomas and Laura tamed. But it is not like any other wolf. This wolf had a special ability similar to what Hannah has with her dogs. The Walker family discovered that they could connect with this wolf in a way no one else could. It was the result of an experiment they conducted. But it wasn't just this wolf. There were more." Lorna fell silent, feeling as if everything around her was slowly shattering. "An experiment? What kind of experiment? Bill looked at Lorna, and what he was about to reveal made her feel as if she were being thrown into an abyss. Thomas and Laura didn't just train dogs. They participated in a study about the spiritual connection between humans and animals. A study they maintained for years, starting when they were young. They discovered that this ability was not just training, it was connected to a type of supernatural energy they called the biological link. This ability could make animals smarter and connect with humans in a perfect way. But it could also have unforeseen consequences. Lorna felt a chill run down her spine. Supernatural energy. Does that mean the dogs Hannah trains do not just obey her because of training? Exactly, Bill said. They are not just animals that she trains. They are connecting with her in a way that no one can explain. And that is why they obey Hannah's every command without question. But the wolf, the animal Thomas and Laura experimented with, lost control after being exposed to this energy. And when it lost control, it attacked. Lorna sat down, trying to process this information. Everything she knew about Hannah, about the girl's abilities, suddenly became much more complex than she had ever imagined. The girl was not just a genius animal trainer. Hannah had a power that no one in Riverton could ever have fathomed. Bill continued. After the incident with the wolf, Thomas and Laura decided to sever their connection to this research, and they began training dogs instead of wild animals. But they knew that if someone could master this energy, they could control everything. And that is why they protected Hannah. But they never could have imagined that this ability would develop so powerfully. Lorna felt a heavy sense of dread. She knew that, with this power, Hannah could do many miraculous things. But she also understood that if not properly controlled, this power could become a terrifying threat not only to the girl, but to everyone around her. Hannah didn't just need protection, she needed to fully understand the power she possessed. Lorna stood up, her gaze fixed on the papers on the table. We have to stop everything right now. I will help Hannah learn how to control this power. But we need to act quickly, or else what happened with the wolf could repeat itself. Bill nodded, but the worry was still evident on his face. I'm afraid it may already be too late. Lorna turned to look out the window, Bill's words echoing in her mind. If they did not act immediately, everything could spiral out of control, and the worst possible outcome might happen. She had to help Hannah, not just for the girl, but for everyone. The story had become a battle, not only with the dogs, but with the very power that the girl possessed. The truth had been revealed, and now Lorna knew that she not only had to protect Hannah, but also save her from her own power. As winter slowly approached, the atmosphere in Riverton grew darker and colder. But inside Lorna, the worry did not diminish. The more she learned about the Walker family's past, the more the tension built. If she couldn't help Hannah immediately, things could get much worse. Eventually, she decided to take the girl to a place few knew about, a research facility focused on supernatural abilities and the spiritual connection between humans and animals. This was where researchers had worked with powerful energies and mysteries the outside world could not yet comprehend. Lorna hoped that here they could help Hannah better understand her ability and learn how to control it. That evening, Lorna visited Hannah at home, where the girl was playing with her dogs. Everything seemed normal. The dogs obeyed every gesture from her, and in their eyes, Lorna saw a connection that no one could deny. However, something in the air made Lorna uneasy. She knew these peaceful days were slowly coming to an end, and a great challenge awaited them. Hannah, Lorna called gently, her eyes kind but determined. We need to go to a place where you can better understand your power. It is a safe place, and it will help you control it. Hannah looked at her, her eyes filled with an indescribable trust. It was as though she sensed something very special in Lorna's words. The girl didn't say anything, but the gentle nod she gave warmed Lorna's heart. She was ready. Together, they went to the research facility. As they entered, Lorna felt an entirely different atmosphere, one of calm yet brimming with energy. Scientists, animal experts, and skilled trainers gathered here to study the special abilities that humans and animals could share. Lorna knew this was a pivotal moment in helping Hannah overcome her fears and learn to control her power. When they met Dr. Evelyn Brooks, the head of the research on the human-animal connection, Lorna sensed her professionalism and seriousness in addressing the issue. Dr. Brooks welcomed them with a warm smile, but her gaze became serious when she looked at Hannah and her dogs. We must understand that the abilities Hannah possesses are not a coincidence. It is a deep connection, a power created from the latent energy within her and the animals around her, Dr. Brooks explained, looking into the curious eyes of Lorna and Hannah. The problem is, if not properly controlled, this connection can lead to loss of control and even harm both humans and animals. Lorna felt anxious, but she knew they had come to the right place. Dr. Brooks continued, "We will help Hannah understand her ability, but more importantly, we will help her learn how to maintain balance between herself and the animals." Over the next few days, Hannah began her special training with the experts. They taught her how to communicate not only with gentle gestures, but also with intense focus and a stillness of the mind. Through each exercise, Hannah slowly realized that the power she possessed wasn't something to exploit, but a gift that she needed to cherish and control. The dogs were not just companions, they were her closest friends, helping her connect with herself and the world around her. Lorna also supported Hannah throughout this process. Each day, she took time to observe and document the girl's progress. The more Lorna watched, the more she felt a shift in the way Hannah interacted with the dogs. The patience and love the girl showed them were evident not only through her actions, but in the respect she gave them and herself. One morning, while they were practicing outdoors, a miraculous sight occurred. Hannah's dogs suddenly stopped and lined up, all their eyes turned toward her. A strange silence enveloped the space. Then, in a dramatic moment, Hannah stepped forward and raised her hand. The dogs didn't just obey, they moved gently, without making a sound, as if they were in perfect harmony with her, a seamless connection that couldn't be broken. Lorna stood beside her, tears welling up in her eyes. She understood that this was the result of patience, love, and acceptance that Hannah had learned throughout her journey. The girl was no longer a lonely child with a power she could not control. Now, she was a confident companion who had learned to master her ability and use it to bring peace to the world around her. That day, when they returned to Riverton, the whole town knew about the miraculous transformation in Hannah. Neighbors, who had once feared and doubted her, now looked at her with a different gaze, one of admiration and respect. Hannah was no longer a strange child with an unexplainable ability. She was a strong girl who had learned to control herself and the world around her. The story of Hannah, the dogs, and the journey that she and Lorna had undergone had ultimately become a touching and inspiring tale. It was not just the story of a girl with special abilities, but also a story of love, patience, and the power of connection between humans and animals. And when spring arrived, the town of Riverton blossomed with new flowers, and Hannah, no longer fearing her abilities, could enjoy life like any other normal child. Alongside her loyal friends, she not only explored the world, but also opened new doors to a bright, hopeful future. Happiness had arrived, not just for Hannah, but for all those who had accompanied her on this challenging journey. Thank you all for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best stories. See you in the next one.